Mission of Colombia to the UN in New York. And we have a few housekeeping announcements before we get into the meat of our discussion. Sophia, could you just repeat the announcements on online interpretation?
Yes, certainly. So just to re-echo what has been announced a while ago, please log into the Zoom. You will find the QR codes on the table via, or you can type it in the link address. When you log into the Zoom, please make sure that you mute your microphones and you have your headphones with you to be able to access the interpretation. On the Zoom, you will find a globe. And in that globe, there is French, Spanish, and English. So please select the interpretation that you wish to avail. Okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sophia. And now, without further ado, I would like to call on our first speaker who will deliver the opening remarks and set the tone for our conversation. And her name is Ms. Emmy Peruya, the Director General of Multilateral Affairs and Human Rights at the Global Affairs of Canada. One more announcement. I am not able to present their very impressive CVs, and but we will post them online. So lucky for those who have access to Zoom. And yeah, you will see from their speeches how formidable all of them are. So I would now like to welcome again Ms. Emmy Peruya, Director General of Multilateral Affairs and Human Rights at the Global Affairs Canada.
Good morning. Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone in the room. Really so happy to see everyone and to see a nice full room, and to hello to those online as well. If I could start by just acknowledging that this event is taking place on the unceded territory of the Munsee Lenape people. I know so many people around this room, of course, coming from many different places. I would also personally like to acknowledge that I live and work on the unceded territories of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people, currently Ottawa, Canada. Really a great pleasure to be with you all today, a great honor for me to be here. I'd like to thank all the panelists around the table, and really to all the women peace builders who are at the front lines of all the work that we're advancing in this space. And thank you for sharing your expertise today. I'd especially like to thank Mave Cabrera Baeza, the founder and CEO of the Global Network of Women Peace Builders, for being here, for co-organizing, and of course for moderating. Such a thrill to be here and to learn really from all of you about inclusive and intersectional approaches to local peace building. This is such an important year, of course, as we celebrate the 30th anniversary of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action here in this week that is so filled with energy. And of course, the 25th anniversary of the UN Security Council 1324 on women, peace, and security. As we look back on 30 years, we do have much to be proud of in advancing inclusion, peace and security, and women's rights around the world. Today, many places in the world are more prosperous and more peaceful. But we also know that there's still so much to do, and we do see a very concerning backlash on human rights, including women's rights, against democracy, and even threats to peace and security across the globe. We also see a quantifiable, targeted, and sophisticated backsliding in funding to gender equality work and policies. As we tackle these challenges head on, relying on the expertise and experience of diverse local peace builders, including all of you in the room, will be really critical. You and all of the community have such a deep experience in your local context, and you hold the solutions to how we need to work to move forward and support our work. The full, equal, safe, and meaningful inclusion and participation of diverse women peace builders in peace and security processes are essential to the success and sustainability of these processes. Their protection from all forms of violence, particularly conflict-related sexual violence, CRSV, is critical as we are seeing a very concerning backslide and rise in recent years of CRSV and of technology-facilitated sexual and gender-based violence, and of increasing attacks against women human rights defenders more generally. Canada's very proud to be supporting the Global Network of Women Peace Builders project, the project Strengthening Local Leadership in Women, Peace and Security, and Youth, Peace and Security in Conflict and Post-Conflict Settings. Through this project, GNWP is working to ensure that local action plans and national action plans include the priorities and needs of young women and gender equality allies. And it's helping to identify key barriers to engagement, along with potential solutions to foster more inclusive and effective participation in peace building. This project is just one example of Canada's ongoing commitment to support the Women, Peace and Security agenda. Through Canada's own third National Action Plan on Women, Peace and Security, Canada humbly recognizes that we have an opportunity to advance the WPS agenda both at home and abroad. We've learned so much from our Indigenous partners, Indigenous women and communities in Canada whilst supporting peace and security domestically. And we look forward to continuing to learn from all of you today on what Canada can do better to support your work internationally. We also look forward to hearing from the distinguished panel, of course, on your experiences as peace builders and your perspectives on enhancing our collective local peace building efforts. Thank you again so much. Merci beaucoup, Miigwech.
Thank you so much, Ms. Furuya, and we are forever grateful and proud of our partnership with Canada in light of your global leadership in advancing the Women, Peace and Security agenda, and also recognizing that we've achieved so much, especially with the leadership of women peace builders. But with the evolving political situation around the world, we see more challenges. So while we take stock of our achievements, we also recognize that there are increasing challenges that we must face head on. Thank you again also for welcoming us in your beautiful space every CSW and every October anniversary here in New York. And now I would like to call on another friend, and our partnership with her country has been similar to Canada when we were new as an organization and we're just starting our advocacy for ensuring the connection between global and local to global. And she's none other than Ambassador Arlene B. Chicker, at-large Ambassador for Gender Affairs and Global Feminist Policy at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Government of Colombia. And before this, she was the Deputy Permanent Representative. So we talked to her many times in between the anniversaries and the CSW. Welcome, Ambassador.
Thank you very much. I think I'm supposed to speak in Spanish. There's translation, correct? Or no?
Yes, there is.
I just want to make sure. I'm sorry for the confusion.
There is, but yeah,
Should I speak in English then?
it might
Okay,
be easier.
I'll do that. Sorry, I was told to speak in Spanish. Please excuse me for that small confusion. Good morning. I'm tremendously pleased to be here to join you in the opening of this event. I just want to thank Mavi Cabrera Valleza from the Global Network, with whom she's already said we have worked quite strongly. We are tremendous fans of the work of the network and think that it has been fundamental. Also want to recognize the co-sponsorship of the Mission of Canada, with whom we have also worked quite strongly. And I also want to just greet my co-national, Luisa Fernanda Gonzalez from the Fundación Escuelas por la Paz, who will be speaking afterwards based upon her experience. I don't want to go into much detail on all of the disconcerting events that surround us today, but I think it is a moment of pause and reflection given the anniversary of Resolution 1325 and the Women, Peace, and Security Agenda, to reflect critically and frankly on both our advances and the limitations and the challenges that this agenda face. We've already heard from my predecessor about some of the problems, but we are in a global context characterized by increasing militarization, growing military expenses, which only tend to grow in the current actual context, increases that are quite disconcerting in different types of violences rooted in gender, including sexual violence in conflict, as well as the instrumentalization and weaponization of gender itself. In the case of Colombia, and this is what I would like to talk about for just 1 minute, both our 2016 peace accord, as well as our first national action plan on 1325 and our feminist foreign policy, both of which the second have been adopted during the timeframe of the government of Gustavo Petro and Francia Marquez, recognize equally the need to put women in their diversity in the center of our peace building efforts. In the case of our national action plan, it states without women, there is no change. And I would add to that, that without women in their diversity, peace and security are not possible. And we are working very hard to put that discourse into practice in recognizing the fundamental roles played by women in their diversity in different peace building efforts in our country. All of these policies are intersectional, and they are differential in the sense that they recognize the varied ways in which armed conflicts have evolved in our national territories, and the differing roles and needs on the ground of those most affected by violence and conflict. I just want to make one point, actually, and I'll end because we have very interesting speakers to hear. In terms of the everyday work of our feminist and women's organizations in different parts of the national territory, I think often when we talk about women's peacemaking roles, we don't think about the everyday roles that are played. And something that we in Colombia are very keen on is mapping all of these different roles on the ground, making them known, and cultivating, if you wish, the best practices and lessons learned from these experiences with an eye to sharing them via South-South cooperation. If we only look at the formal roles, which are fundamental too, let me just not, I have to state, if we only look at the formal roles played by women, which need to be increased because we know that they help with lasting peace agreements, and we don't look at the everyday roles, I think we're missing an important part of the picture. So let me just welcome you. Thank you for sharing all of your experiences, and I look forward to hearing the conversation.
Thank you, Ambassador Erlene. And yes, let's not be shy to clap. We need to celebrate women leaders. Yeah, and of the many essential points that you highlighted, I like how you emphasize the mapping of our work and monitoring our work. And I would like to stress here that the peace agreement between Colombia, the Colombian government, and the FARC has been one, or if not the top peace agreement that has integrated gender in, and women's organizations are closely monitoring how those gender provisions in the peace agreement are implemented and how they link to the first national action plan on women, peace, and security. So congratulations on that work. Now I would like to call on another friend who is serving as advisor to the Ministry of Gender, Family and Children from the Democratic Republic of Congo, Unfortunately, the minister is not able to join us, but we have an equally capable woman leader who will inspire us today that despite the challenges, they are moving forward and remain very active in the implementation of the Women, Peace, and Security agenda. So let's all welcome Ms. Annie Matundu Mbambi. Annie, you have the floor.
Morning, everybody. I'm going to speak in French.
As announced by Sophia, please, those who have linked to their Zoom, access the Zoom interpretation. And what I would request our interpreters is maybe summarize the points that Annie has made after she speaks. So a very brief summary.
Yes.
Thank you.
Merci pour la parole, Mavic. Comme Mavic venait de le dire, Son Excellence, Madame la Ministre Léonie Kandolo-Moïse, qui devrait être avec nous, est malheureusement empêchée. Je suis venue la représenter et je vais livrer son mot qu'elle devrait dire ici. Alors, Mesdames et Messieurs, distingués invités, nous sommes réunis aujourd'hui pour aborder un sujet d'une importance cruciale, les approches intersectionnelles pour la consolidation de la paix locale. En me tenant devant vous, je suis profondément consciente des défis et des souffrances que beaucoup de communautés traversent, en particulièrement la République démocratique du Congo, où la guerre a laissé et continue à laisser des cicatrices profondes et durables. Il est dit dans mon pays, comme en Afrique, quand les éléphants se battent, c'est l'herbe qui souffre. Cette sagesse traditionnelle nous rappelle que dans le conflit, ce sont souvent les plus vulnérables qui payent le prix les plus élevés, les femmes, les enfants et les minorités qui sont souvent plus touchées, leur voix étouffée et leur souffrance ignorée. C'est pourquoi il est essentiel d'adopter une approche intersectionnelle qui prend en compte toutes les dimensions de l'identité et de la marginalisation. Un seul doigt ne peut pas attraper un pouls, comme on dit aussi chez moi. Cela nous enseigne l'importance de la collaboration et de l'unité. Le ministère du Genre, Famille et Enfants de la RDC a joué et continue à jouer un rôle crucial dans la localisation de l'agenda Femmes, Paix et Sécurité par la protection et la promotion du statut de la femme en collaboration avec d'autres ministères par une réglementation du cadre légal et institutionnel et par des projets spécifiques. Prenons l'exemple des femmes congolaises qui, malgré les violences et les discriminations auxquelles elles font face, se sont levées comme des piliers de la paix et de la résilience. Elles ont utilisé leur force et leur détermination pour reconstruire les communautés, apporter de l'espoir et de la stabilité dans des environnements marqués par le conflit et la guerre. Ceux qui se battent ne meurent pas. Souligne le courage et la persévérance nécessaires pour surmonter les épreuves. Le ministère du Genre, Famille et Enfants soutient les besoins prioritaires des femmes et des jeunes filles dans la mise en œuvre du programme Femmes, Paix et Sécurité et par la protection et la promotion des droits, la collaboration intersectorielle en collaboration avec des partenaires en organisant, par exemple, le Forum des jeunes filles qui vise à soutenir les adolescents et les jeunes femmes pour conduire la transformation des normes sociales et les dynamiques des pouvoirs qui renforcent la discrimination et la violence contre les femmes et les jeunes filles. Pour construire une paix durable, nous devons travailler ensemble en écoutant et en intégrant les perspectives variées des communautés locales. C'est en utilisant nos forces et en reconnaissant la diversité des expériences que nous pourrons créer des solutions qui résonnent véritablement sur le terrain. Dans notre quête de paix, nous devons adopter des approches empreinte de compassion et d'empathie. En comprenant les luttes quotidiennes et en répondant aux besoins spécifiques de chaque individu, nous pouvons créer un environnement où chacun se sent entendu et valorisé. Il est crucial de donner la priorité aux femmes et aux filles, aux enfants, dans le contexte de l'aggravation du conflit dans l'Est de la RDC, à cause de leur vulnérabilité accrue, l'accès limité aux services essentiels, leur rôle crucial dans la paix et la sécurité et les droits humains. En mettant l'accent sur les besoins des femmes et des filles, nous pouvons non seulement atténuer les souffrances immédiates, mais aussi contribuer à la construction d'une société plus juste et équitable. En conclusion, permettez-moi de réitérer l'importance des approches intersectionnelles pour la consolidation de la paix locale. Nous devons reconnaître que chaque voix compte, chaque histoire est précieuse et chaque contribution est essentielle. Ensemble, en puisant dans notre sagesse collective et en agissant avec compassion et détermination, nous pouvons bâtir un avenir plus juste et plus pacifique pour tous. Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much, Annie. I will attempt to summarize what I captured from the online interpretation. So Annie recognized that while the Ministry of Gender has been really strongly coordinating the work on women, peace, and security, their challenges, including what they're experiencing now in the eastern part of the country, has proven that the most vulnerable suffer the most. And who are those most vulnerable? Almost always they are the women and girls. And she also emphasized the diversity of those affected. And in our response, we need to integrate them. And Annie also honored the determination of women to rebuild their communities in times of conflict. And from my own observation in DRC, repeated years and years of conflict has really tested the resilience and courage of the women. But of course, it's not something that should be normalized. We need accountability of everyone, especially the decision makers and policy makers. That part, that last minute is part of my editing with my knowledge of the situation in DRC. And Annie also emphasized several times that it is crucial that in our response to the violence, that we center the needs of women and girls, and that intersectionality is essential because each voice is important. Everyone has something to contribute. Everyone has an expertise, because after all, they are the ones who are living the conflict every single day of their lives. Thank you again, Annie. And we'll hear more about the situation in the DRC because we have other speakers. And now I turn to our Senior Program Director, Hasmin Nario Galase, who herself is very active in Asia Pacific, particularly in the Philippines, in responding to violent conflicts in different parts of our country, and also the ensuing humanitarian emergencies. Dr. Galase will help us in setting the scene for intersectional approaches to local peace building that our speakers already referenced to. She will provide more detail and context to this strategy. Welcome, Hasmin.
Thank you very much, Mavic. Good morning, co-builders of peace. It is an honor to be with all of you here today as we explore the power of local peace building, the work being done in communities, by communities, to heal wounds of conflict and build a future of peace. In many countries affected by war, like Colombia, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and Lebanon, local peace builders, especially women, youth, and marginalized groups, have been at the forefront of restoring trust and fostering reconciliation. In Colombia, grassroots organizations have led dialogues between former combatants and communities, helping rebuild relationships after decades of war. In the DRC, women's groups have played a crucial role in resolving local conflicts and bringing communities together. In Lebanon, young people are leading efforts to bridge sectarian divisions, proving that peace is possible when all voices are heard. But to make peace building truly effective, we must recognize that not everyone experiences conflict in the same way. Our identities, such as gender, ethnicity, age, disability or ability, religion, language, economic status, sexual orientation, migration status, and more, shape how we experience war and peace. This is why intersectional approaches are essential. So what do we mean by intersectionality in peace building? Traditional peace-building efforts often take a one-size-fits-all approach, but reality is more complex. Different people face different challenges, and their voices must be included. An intersectional approach helps us, number one, to understand and address the specific challenges faced by diverse community members. A young woman in a refugee camp in Cox's Bazar, an indigenous leader defending land rights in Quezon in the Philippines, or a person with a disability in a conflict zone will all experience peace and security differently. Their needs must be reflected in our work. Number two, ensure inclusive participation. Historically, many voices, especially those of women, youth, and marginalized groups, have been excluded from decision-making. Intersectionality, my friends, helps break these barriers, making peace processes more just and representative. Number three, develop solutions that are relevant, sustainable, and truly transformative. By recognizing the realities of different groups, we can craft peace-building initiatives that last. One example of an intersectional tool is Canada's Gender-Based Analysis Plus, or GBA Plus, which helps policymakers assess how different identity factors affect people's experiences. In peace building, such approaches prevent policies from reinforcing existing inequalities and ensure that all people, regardless of their background, benefit from peace initiatives. At the Global Network of Women Peace Builders, intersectionality is not just a concept. It is the foundation of our work. We ensure that peace building includes all voices: women, youth, local and national government officials, religious and traditional leaders, indigenous peoples, and the security sector, among others. We connect peace with development, climate action, digital security, humanitarian action, and gender equality, recognizing that these issues are deeply linked. You cannot have peace without equality, nor equality without security. Number three, at GNWP, intersectionality is embedded in everything we do. From our guiding vision of equality for women, peace for all, to our strategic plans, monitoring tools, and training programs. Number four, our trainings and peace dialogues in GNWP are designed to be accessible and relevant to different groups. Whether it is a rural woman in the highlands of Papua New Guinea, leading mediation efforts, or young digital activists from the Philippines countering misinformation, we tailor our approaches to fit the realities of those on the ground. Intersectionality is not just an idea, it is a necessity. If we truly want peace to last, we must ensure that all voices, all identities, and all experiences are reflected in peace-building efforts. So, dear friends and colleagues, let us commit today to building peace that is truly inclusive, just, and sustainable. By embracing intersectional approaches, we take one step closer to a world where no one is left behind. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Hasmin, for unpacking a little more what we mean by intersectional approach to local peace building. And I also want to underscore how, how you cited the gender-based analysis plus, which is Canadian original, as I refer to it, that has been used for decades because it's been very effective in ensuring the recognition of the different identities and experiences of the program partners. Thank you once again. And now we're moving on to the other part of our discussion, which will be a roundtable panel comprised of those who actually do what we're talking about here on the ground. And first, I have Luisa Fernandez Gonzalez, who is from Fundación Escuelas por la Paz in Colombia. And Luisa, I'll start with my questions to you, which are the first one. Describe briefly the conflict or post-conflict situation in the communities where you live or work. For example, is there gun violence? Are there cases of sexual violence? And how is poverty related to the continuing impact of the conflicts? And then I also want to ask you to share with us how intersectional approach to the context of the community is helpful. Luisa will speak in Spanish. Again, we request those who have access to Zoom to listen in, but we have a colleague who will also provide a summary of Luisa's presentation. Welcome, Luisa. You have the floor.
Muchísimas gracias, Mavi. Muchísimas gracias sí, por esta invitación. Estoy muy feliz de estar en este lugar. Bueno, quiero contarles que en Colombia en la actualidad tenemos a pesar de tener un acuerdo firmado, estamos viviendo un conflicto de grandes proporciones, porque está allí la guerrilla del ELN, nuevos grupos disidentes del acuerdo, que salieron del acuerdo y no lo siguieron, las autodefensas. Quisiera nombrar estos tres, pero son algunos como de los varios grupos armados que en este momento existen en Colombia y que están marcando el contexto actualmente. Al mismo tiempo, hemos impulsado en Colombia con este gobierno una política de paz total que ha llevado a tener cerca de 10 procesos de diálogo y negociación con distintos actores que tienen distintos niveles de avance o de retroceso, como por ejemplo la esperanza que teníamos en la mesa de diálogos con el ELN, que acaba de ser suspendida, bueno, hace algunos meses fue suspendida, pero sin embargo queríamos resaltar ahí que con el acuerdo 28 que se logró con esta mesa hay un elemento interesante que tiene que ver con la participación y tiene que ver con la, digamos, incluir no solamente un elemento pedagógico de construcción de cultura de paz y abordar lo que significa la cultura patriarcal, así quedó en el acuerdo 28, entonces para nosotras es un avance porque son propuestas que hicimos las mujeres en ese marco de la negociación. En Colombia en este momento existen cerca de 12 focos de emergencia o crisis humanitaria al mismo tiempo. Eso tiene unos retos muy grandes. El solo ejemplo en el Catatumbo, más de cerca de 50.000 personas desplazadas, entre ellas 20.000 niños, niñas, adolescentes y jóvenes están siendo desplazados y cerca de 11.000 niños y niñas están confinadas en el territorio del norte de Santander, precisamente en el Catatumbo. No tenemos unos datos precisos porque no está incluida esta mirada interseccional que nos permita saber quién niñas, cómo están caracterizados. El caso es que hoy están siendo vulnerados en todos sus derechos, desarraigados totalmente de su tierra. Y quisiera terminar en esta lógica del contexto que vivimos actualmente con el reclutamiento, uso y utilización de las niñas, de los niños y de los adolescentes y jóvenes. Esta problemática es realmente grave. Esto se intensificó porque también se intensificaron los grupos, se intensificó todo el conflicto de tal manera que las niñas y los niños fueron los primeros vinculados utilizando diversas formas, desde el coqueteo, el enamoramiento a las niñas, la búsqueda de regalos o simplemente la acción forzada y la utilización de la violencia para que una familia, por ejemplo, entregue al menos uno de sus hijos o hijas al grupo armado. Quisiera contarles que aquí en varias conversaciones y trabajos que hemos acompañado, por ejemplo, con las mujeres indígenas y afro, ellas nos han contado que si bien en Colombia no se tiene como una identificación de cuántos niños, cuántas niñas, ellas han visto que el número de niñas sí ha aumentado porque antes se priorizaba, digamos, llevarse a los niños a los grupos armados. Ahora es indistinto, entonces ese número de niñas y jóvenes, mujeres jóvenes, ha aumentado significativamente. Lo mismo que tampoco las mujeres afro, por ejemplo, nos han dicho, no pensemos solamente en los grupos armados tradicionales, sino pensemos que los demás grupos están haciendo el mismo reclutamiento, el mismo uso y la misma utilización para las actividades criminales. Entonces, un niño o una niña hoy no necesita tampoco irse de su casa para estar vinculado al conflicto armado, porque hay una multiplicidad de tareas en las que son involucrados y también porque hay muchas formas que han hecho que por ejemplo, la vida social de las niñas, las fiestas están siendo cooptadas por estos grupos, así que no hay unos espacios libres y seguros para que las niñas, los niños en sus territorios. Y es muy importante afirmar aquí que esto no sucede solamente a nivel rural, esto sucede también en las urbes como Bogotá, como Buenaventura, como Cali, por ejemplo. Son ciudades como Medellín en las que está siendo muy, muy importante, muy desafiante y que es necesario pues escuchar a las comunidades porque allí se han implementado acciones, pero también acompañar a las mujeres especialmente en proveer capacidades para afrontar esta grave situación. Más adelante les contaré alguna experiencia al respecto. Para pasar a la segunda pregunta, porque aquí el tiempo es oro, sobre los enfoques interseccionales y contextuales que en este momento desde nuestra experiencia estamos consolidando o estamos implementando para la consolidación de una paz efectiva. Primero quisiera nombrar como todo el trabajo que ya la embajadora Arlene había expuesto, solamente para decir que las mujeres en Colombia hemos abanderado distintas organizaciones y sobre todo en todos los niveles, porque a veces nos quedamos con la impresión de que esto pasa con las plataformas, pero esto ha sucedido en todos los niveles, en varios ámbitos. Uno, en la construcción pues, de la política pública, de políticas públicas como la política exterior feminista, la política para el desmantelamiento de las estructuras criminales, la construcción del primer Plan de Acción Nacional de la Resolución 1325, la política de seguridad, defensa y convivencia. En todas ellas ustedes revisan estas políticas y van a encontrar incorporados los enfoques interseccionales de género, diferenciales, la población LGBTI y en especial porque hemos como adelantado un proceso de participación y porque también se ha respondido al reclamo de las comunidades, de las mujeres. Las mujeres en todos los espacios de incidencia han exigido, las mujeres indígenas, campesinas, las mujeres afrodescendientes, han exigido la inclusión de estos enfoques, que se tenga en cuenta que somos diferentes en cada territorio, que tenemos afectaciones diferentes en cada territorio. Por ejemplo, con el diseño del plan de acción de la resolución 1325, una de las cosas que surgió muy importantes fue el enfoque antidiscriminación. Fue el reclamo principal de las mujeres afrodescendientes y también las salvaguardas que hicieron las comunidades indígenas para decir no puede adelantarse ninguna acción en este plan que no tenga en cuenta estas diferencias y que se consulte en la implementación de cada una de estas acciones cuando así sea necesario. Quisiera también aquí pasar a los otros 3 puntos que quiero compartir con ustedes. Desde nuestra experiencia en el proyecto de fortalecimiento de los liderazgos locales sobre mujeres, paz y seguridad que venimos desarrollando con la Red Global, y que ha sido para nosotras una fortuna en la Fundación poder participar de este proyecto con el apoyo del gobierno canadiense. Nosotras hemos encontrado lo siguiente, aquí primero que todo un diálogo intergeneracional muy intenso con mujeres indígenas guayú de La Guajira, con mujeres jóvenes de Bogotá y Soacha, especialmente mujeres jóvenes muy diversas de Bogotá y Soacha. En La Guajira sí, sobre todo mujeres afro y mujeres indígenas guayú. Y aquí porque las mujeres en este trabajo han hecho un ejercicio muy bonito de reconocerse como protagonistas y constructoras de paz y no solamente como víctimas o personas que están en riesgo permanente por el hecho de ser mujeres o por el hecho de ser mujeres afro o mujeres indígenas. También ha sido muy interesante el tema territorial. No es lo mismo estar en Bogotá que estar en Buenaventura, que son 2 ciudades, pero que la manera como, por ejemplo, una mujer afro tiene que afrontar los riesgos en términos de seguridad es diferente. ¿Sí? Puede ser que en Bogotá, por el hecho de la discriminación, se aumenten los riesgos que en su territorio, digamos, más ancestral, que es Buenaventura. También esto nos ha llevado al reconocimiento de que el conflicto lo vivimos en todas partes, en lo rural, lo urbano, y que ese conflicto también ahí es diverso, tiene 1000 caras en la ciudad y en lo rural. En este sentido, creemos que los enfoques interseccionales, nuestra mirada feminista, nos ayuda a pensar la paz de una manera situada desde el protagonismo de las mujeres. Es decir, vivir la experiencia de la diversidad es lo que nos ha puesto como a aprender y a desarrollar los enfoques interseccionales. Porque una cosa es el discurso sobre la diversidad y otra cosa es aprender a vivir en la diversidad. Es un ejercicio que estamos haciendo y por ello este reconocimiento de la diversidad de las mujeres. Aquí nosotras quisiéramos decir que el conflicto es multimodal, multinivel, multiactor y por eso también creemos que la paz se tiene que pensar así. Las mujeres así lo estamos trabajando desde nuestros territorios. El desarrollo, un punto adicional, es el desarrollo de contenidos, metodologías y análisis, cartografías interseccionales, es decir, cómo nosotras estamos desarrollando nuestro ejercicio desde la interseccionalidad, desde esta apuesta pedagógica, ¿no? Desarrollar cómo se hace esto de la interseccionalidad. Y quisiera contarles para finalizar, porque me queda un minuto, que algunas mujeres indígenas han venido trabajando una propuesta que se llama Recomponer el Camino de Vuelta a Casa, como una acción de prevención y de atención a todos los niños, a todas las niñas que se recuperan de los grupos armados. Entonces, esta es una acción muy bonita que están las mujeres indígenas NASA del norte del Cauca especialmente, que están trabajando esto desde su organización de la CIN para como una respuesta efectiva a esta problemática y con un enfoque de interseccionalidad. Creo que ya se me quedaron 3 puntos súper importantes, pero ya tendré oportunidad de compartirlos. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias por su presentación, Luisa. And now I would like to request our colleague Cecilia to provide a very short summary of Luisa's presentation in English for colleagues that do not have access to Zoom. Cecilia,
Sure.
please,
Can
you have the floor.
Thank you, Mavi. Can you hear me well in the room?
Yes, yes.
Excellent. Yes, thank you. Gracias. Muchas gracias, Luisa. Thank you. I will provide a short summary. So Luisa was saying that even though in Colombia there is currently a peace agreement signed with the FARC-EP, Colombia is currently experiencing a large-scale armed conflict. The expansion and consolidation of illegal armed groups alongside organized crime structures and urban gangs form the complex landscape of conflict in the country. She emphasized that children, women, and young people are particularly affected. We need to mention the Catacomba crisis, where nearly 20,000 people were displaced and about 11,000 people remain confined. But one of the biggest issues is the recruitment and use of children and young people, which has increased significantly, particularly involving girls and young women. This has been reported by indigenous women in Northern Cauca. However, it's important to point out that there has been a lack of disaggregated data, making it difficult to determine the exact figures. Within this context of recruitment, girls and young women, as I said, are particularly vulnerable to sexual violence, human trafficking, sexual exploitation, and domestic labor. But on the bright side, on the positive side of Luisa's second response is that women in Colombia, especially women from civil society, have been at the forefront of integrating intersectional approaches into public policies, including the feminist foreign policy, the policy for dismantling criminal structures, and of course, the development of the first national action plan on women, peace, and security. So these frameworks have acknowledged intersectionality and provide essential tools for peace building. Luisa later highlighted that through our joint project with Fundación Escuelas de la Paz, together with the Global Network of Women Peace Builders, and of course with the support of Canada, we have learned several lessons. I will try to summarize them. But first, that young women realize that adopting an intersectional approach allows them to see themselves as peace builders rather than just victims at risk. Secondly, recognizing intersectional differences highlights how identity and context shape experiences. For example, she mentioned that an Afro-Colombian woman in Bogota faces different challenges than one in Buenaventura, even though both experience gender-based and racial discrimination. Third, that conflict manifests in multiple ways. So addressing these multidimensional and multi-layer facets requires really an intersectional and feminist perspective to build peace. And this is very important. She emphasized to build peace from the ground up, centering women's leadership. And finally, that women do not only recognize the violence they experience, but also their resistance strategies. Thank you so much, Luisa, for that.
Thank you, Ceci. That's really helpful. And now moving on our program, I now have the pleasure of introducing Brigitte Chelebian, founder and director of Justice Without Frontiers in Lebanon. Brigitte, I have specific questions for you. What are the main challenges and barriers to inclusive local peace building in Lebanon? And the second question is, what successful strategies and lessons learned have you gathered in this work, in our work, including our work together on localization of the Women, Peace and Security Agenda? Over to you, Brigitte.
Thank you, Mavik, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about Lebanon in this important roundtable. First of all, just to give you a small introduction in Lebanon. Lebanon is a sectarian country. We have 19 sects and 15 personal status law. And when we talk about 15 personal status law, we are talking about patriarchal law that are affecting the lives of women and girls in different levels and affects their participation on political, economic level and the public life. As well, I have to mention that since 1917, we had several civil wars in Lebanon. And during the civil wars, we had women who were raped, killed, displaced. But unfortunately, we were counting victims as number, but we were not identifying how many numbers of women were killed during the war, a number of girls or whatever. But we did it since 3 years ago, where we start working on dealing with the past, and we start trying to get more information about what kind of violence women were facing during the war, and even what women were doing within, because during the war, women as well were the head of the family. And we had a short report, but unfortunately, it doesn't include all the needed information. And as well, I have to talk as well about the war that Lebanon faced. We had war with Syria and the main war that we have with Israel. And the latest war with Israel started in October 2023, but accelerated starting in August 2024. And we had 1.4 million displaced person, 3,951 killed and 16,250 persons injured. We had village destroyed, totally destroyed. But again, in number that we are having, we are saying 50% or 40% they are women and children, but there is a need to identify what are the crimes committed against women, what women face, because going through the international criminal justice system, there is different kind of crimes could be committed against women during war. And going through the Declaration of La Haye, which is a declaration issued by civil society across the world, they define the different kind of sexual violence, not identified by laws, but identified by women, that we need to work and focus on. We hope that in this coming phase, we will be working and we will try to get more information regarding this matter. As well, we in Lebanon, we are always in action. Since 2019, we had the COVID-19 issue, and women were in the front line. So they were always in the front line. But unfortunately, on the other hand, we didn't have enough laws to protect these women and to enhance their role and to support them and bring them on table regarding any decision related to this matter. After 2019, we had the economic crisis in Lebanon. And during the economic crisis, the percentage of vulnerability increased in Lebanon. And when we talk about increasing of vulnerability, we are talking about increasing of abuse. And when we talk about abuse, we are talking about trafficking. And unfortunately, since the whole government and law enforcement sectors were as well facing challenges, there wasn't enough precaution measures taken by the government And even by, we cannot put everything on the civil society just to protect women from different kind of abuse or to decrease the percentage of violence, because the percentage of violence reach more than 120%. The percentage of cybersecurity as well increased regarding this matter. And the most difficult issue that the justice become very expensive. So vulnerable people are not able even to register their children. And this is a very, very dangerous indicator. As well, during the last three years, we are facing the backlash. And I think this is what many countries in Arab region, in, I don't know, in Africa and other countries that are facing, where we had a group, I can say they are very systemic and very well organized. They start fighting women-led organization and women rights organization, and they start telling that this organization, they are promoting to LGBTQI, they are promoting to destroy the organization, and they are bringing people from religious community to affect this issue. And I want to note that in our country, Lebanon, LGBTQI is punished, it's a crime. So, and the people, this is creating some challenge within people. And I will talk a little bit after about what we are doing regarding this matter. During the war, we as civil society, we face a lot of challenges regarding funding in humanitarian. The government was not able to do enough work regarding this matter. We had limited funding. Maybe there was some political matter, political issue beside this matter, but we were not, but it's the civil society, it's the women-led organization, it's the human rights organization, but mainly the women's rights organization who were on the ground, and they are going to support women and others. And we had another point. You mentioned that there is no peace without equality, and there is no security without equality. But I say there is no peace, no security, no equality without justice. Because if we cannot bring perpetrators accountable and to end the impunity, we will never be able to reach peace and security. And this is what we are not having in Lebanon. Noting, I will go now what we are doing, that Lebanon has its first national action plan and adopted by the government on 2019. And it was drafted by the National Commission for the Lebanese Women and in a participatory approach. And now we are having the second national action plan draft, but still not adopted from the government. We recently had a new government. And this national action plan is focusing on many issues, on precaution, on protection, and on prosecution, and as well mention on role of women on different level and the importance of bringing women on table regarding negotiation, participation, and other. But as well, we are always facing the political will. So whenever we talk about the quota, whenever we talk about the electoral system, we have political parties that they are using political parliamentarian candidate, that they are using the women cause as a trend just to get their voice, and when they are on the board, they said no. Yes. But now we are working a lot to have women on board on parliament, and we are requesting 50-50, but we will not reach 50-50, but we aim to have a quota to amend our laws, especially that in May we will have the municipality electoral system, and within 1 year and a half the parliamentarian system. One of the important matter as well that I would like to talk about is that we have a group of mediators, women peace builders in Lebanon. This group was established by UN Women and with the participation of other organizations, national and international, and they established a group of women peace builders. And now we, as Justice Without Frontiers, during the war itself, because we had a very big number of displaced persons from the south and from Bekaa. They were in Beirut, Monte Lebanon, and the north. So women and children, they were facing different challenges, and it was difficult to focus on protection and go through legal matters. So this is why we worked on mediation as well during war and during the bombardment. So it was something very crazy that we conducted together with the St. Joseph University, and we brought together social workers who are working as frontliners, lawyers, and the security forces. And now we will continue our work on mediation, and we, with the collaboration of St. Joseph University, to have security forces to play as a role of mediators, and to bring the mediation on table on different level, because we have already a law, but we need mediators on the ground to support. Talking as well about the impunity part, I want to mention that Lebanon on May, the Lebanese government issued a decision, and when we read about the decision, we thought that the government, maybe they had kind of schizophrenia, because they issued a decision and they declared the ICC jurisdiction regarding war crimes committed on the Lebanese territory. And we were a bit surprised how they issued this decision, because we have another party in Lebanon, but after 1 month, they get it back. But now we have a draft law submitted to the government to ratify the Rome Statute, or to issue the declaration under the Article 12.3 declaring the ICC jurisdiction. We have a new president for Lebanon, a new government that are focusing on justice. And on the 8th of March, the government, they mentioned that they are supporting women, they are supporting participation on women, and women shall be on table. We hope that everything will be great. And in the government now, we have 5 women who are now part of the new government in Lebanon, which is very good for us. But the most important is that we want women to get not very easy ministries, but to be part of very important ministries. And one of the success that we did, because I believe that when we are talking about peace building, we have to focus on justice. And in 1 minute, I will finish. We have to focus on justice. And this is what we as GNWP, we are continue working on, even in all our work. So during the war, we were able to shift some of activities into humanitarian. Until now, we are providing legal support with the humanitarian support together. And one of our big success is what we were elected as women-led organization, co-chairing with UN Women GIHA. GIHA means Gender in Humanitarian Action. And for the first time, we as, I don't know to say we, but for the first time during the humanitarian response, we have justice on board and we have protection activities. So one of our recommendations is to have justice and peace building into humanitarian response during the whole process, not during the first part. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Bridget, for emphasizing the one continuum in our work. We cannot anymore afford to implement our work in silos between peace building and humanitarian work and access to justice. Thank you again. And now I would like to move on to DRC. And I would like to introduce our next speaker, Justine Bihamba Masika, who is the founder and former executive director, now on the board of the Synergy of Women for Women Victims of Sexual Violence. Justine, I know you were in Goma when the M23 attack in late January. Could you describe to us briefly how, yeah, what was the impact? What was the immediate impact to women and girls, but also to local communities? And then please also share with us if there were specific strategies that you've put in place, also coming from your long experience of peace building, that help communities, stay together and hold their families intact. So over to you, Justine. Welcome. Justine will be speaking in French. And again, for those who have access to Zoom, we encourage you to do that. But my colleagues are on standby to provide a brief summary of Justine's presentation.
Merci beaucoup, Mavic. Merci encore une fois pour cette opportunité. Ce qui est vrai est que les journées des 26 et 27, 28 janvier ont été un cauchemar pour la population de Goma. Mais pour commencer, je vais dire que ça fait 3 ans que la population de l'Est et surtout de la province du Nord Kivu vit sous la guerre, la reprise de la guerre du M23 soutenue par l'armée rwandaise. Et avec cette reprise des combats, il y a eu des populations qui se sont déplacées. Donc, dans la ville de Goma, on avait plus de 2 millions de déplacés internes qui vivaient dans la ville de Goma. Et là, dans 14 camps dans la ville de Goma. Et là, la situation était difficile puisqu'il n'y avait pas l'aide humanitaire qui suivait. La ville de Goma a toujours eu un problème d'accès à l'eau potable. Avec la guerre, ça a été plus amplifié. Ce qui est vrai, à partir du 5, entre les 5 et les 5 et les 20 janvier, il y a eu des affrontements tout autour de la ville de Goma. Et là, il y a eu encore des déplacés qui se sont ajoutés aux plus de 2 millions qui existaient. Donc, on était au moins à plus de 3 millions de déplacés. Et nous, les habitants de la ville de Goma, nous sommes à 2 millions. Donc, la ville avait plus de 6 millions d'habitants. Et on était asphyxiés. Et à partir entre les 5 et les 20, on a eu les coupures d'électricité, on a eu la coupure électricité, Internet et eau. Donc, on vivait sans Internet, on vivait sans eau, on vivait une vie impossible. Le 23 janvier, les gouverneurs, puisque ça faisait 3 ans que la province du Nord Kivu était sous administration militaire qu'on appelle état de siège. Et là, le gouverneur, quand il est allé en mission pour respecter les militaires en front, malheureusement, on l'a tué. Et les militaires ont été tués, les casques bleus de la MONUSCO ont été tués. Il y avait une mission de l'Afrique australe et aussi, ils ont perdu leurs hommes. Peut-être qu'il faut que je dise qu'à Goma, il y avait donc l'armée congolaise qui était soutenue par les réservistes patriotiques qu'on appelle les Wazalendo. Il y a aussi les mercenaires qui étaient payés par le gouvernement congolais, les mercenaires roumains et français. Il y avait aussi la communauté de l'Afrique australe. Donc, du côté gouvernement, il y avait au moins 4 armées, si j'ajoute 5, si j'ajoute aussi les casques bleus de la MONUSCO. Et du côté des rebelles, il y a les M23, il y a l'armée rwandaise. Donc, il y a plusieurs armées qui se battaient dans la ville de Goma. Et entre les 5 et les 20, comme je l'ai dit, il y a plusieurs localités qui sont prises. Il y a le gouverneur qui est tué. Il y a le casque bleu de la MONUSCO et la mission de Samir, RDC, qui sont tués. Il y a des bombes qui sont larguées dans les camps de déplacés. Donc, il y a des déplacés qui meurent. Ils se dirigent vers la ville et on ne sait pas, on ne sait plus comment vivre. Il y a là, maintenant, la rébellion qui prend la ville de Goma. Et quand la rébellion prend la ville de Goma, il y a des bombes qui tombent sur les maisons. Et d'ailleurs, nous avions été affectés directement. Notre coordinatrice, il y a une bombe qui est tombée sur sa maison. Elle a perdu son mari. Il y a la prison il y a 2 bombes qui tombent sur la cellule des femmes dans la prison. Il y a des femmes et des enfants qui meurent. Là, on parle de plus de 20 personnes et 160 femmes qui ont été violées, mais les statistiques restent à vérifier. Après ça, la ville est prise, donc elle est sous contrôle de la rébellion. Maintenant, il y a des règlements de compte, surtout nous qui sommes des défenseurs des droits humains. Là, on est maintenant recherchés. Heureusement pour moi, je suis partie bien avant. Et quand j'étais en escale, et là, c'était grâce aux amis, il y a des amis qui m'ont dit, essaie de traverser. J'étais obligée de partir avec les collègues qui sont restés, puisque les autres, on les a évacués avant que la ville de Goma soit prise. Et j'ai porté les bébés, puisque moi, je serais très visible. J'ai porté des bébés comme une villageoise et nous sommes partis. Arrivés à Gisenyi, on a pris...
Christine, I'm very sorry. I would like to request you to wrap up in 30 seconds so we can have the short summary and our other colleagues would be able to speak to. We still have 2 speakers from DRC. Okay. Yeah, you can have a few more seconds to wrap up.
Oui, ce que je voulais dire est que les défenseurs des droits humains, aujourd'hui, nous sommes à plus de 300 qui sont en dehors de la RDC et au moins 160 femmes qui sont recherchées. Puisque dans la ville de Goma, là maintenant, on arrive, on vient, on brûle les maisons des défenseurs des droits humains, on prend leurs voitures. Donc, il y a même ceux-là qui s'installent dans les maisons et des défenseurs et de ceux qui, eux, ils appellent des politiciens. Donc, la situation est horrible. Je parle de 2 jours, les 22 et les 27, les 26 et les 28. On a eu plus de 5000 morts, plus de 3000 blessés. Et là, l'aéroport a été détruit. Il faut savoir que la ville n'a pas ni eau, ni électricité, ni connexion. Et on ne sait pas comment vivre. Aujourd'hui, au moment où je vous parle, l'aéroport a été détruit. L'aide humanitaire ne peut pas arriver. Les déplacés sont rentrés dans leur milieu, mais sans aucun accompagnement. Les structures, sur 47 structures de santé qui comptaient la ville de Goma, il y a 34 qui ont été pillées. L'aide humanitaire se trouva dans les dépôts du programme alimentaire mondial ont été pillés. Donc, la situation est, je ne sais pas comment le dire. Oui, là, maintenant, je parle pour ce que nous faisons. Je voulais présenter la situation, Mavik. C'est tellement important. Je crois que ce dont nous avons besoin ici, c'est la solidarité des personnes qui sont ici. Et quand je parle de la solidarité, nous avons besoin que la paix revienne en République démocratique du Congo. Et là, quand on parle de la paix, il faut parler de la justice. Il y a des personnes qui ont été tuées. Il y a des maisons qui ont été... Là, nous avons besoin... On ne peut pas parler de la paix sans la justice. Il faut vraiment que les victimes obtiennent justice. Et la deuxième chose que je vais demander est qu'il y ait la protection des défenseurs des droits humains, surtout les femmes défenseurs des droits humains. Nous sommes éparpillés dans beaucoup de pays sans assistance aucune et nous avons besoin vraiment de la solidarité des autres personnes que nous rencontrons ici. Et la troisième chose, nous croyons qu'il y aura respect des cessez-le-feu, puisque c'est beaucoup de pays qui se sont montrés solidaires avec nous et demandant le cessez-le-feu, mais qui n'est pas respecté. Nous voulons vraiment qu'on puisse respecter ce cessez-le-feu. Et si un jour il y aura négociation, qu'une femme fasse partie de ce groupe de négociateurs et aussi que les femmes participent à ces négociations. Là, c'est la situation de Goma. Maintenant, c'est que je m'excuse pour insister, vraiment, il a fallu que je parle de ça, puisque je ne peux pas, moi, de Goma, sans pouvoir parler de ça. Ce que nous faisons dans l'intersectionnalité, c'est depuis 2 ans, donc avec, je vais dire, avec la Constitution de 2006, on a parlé des entités territoriales décentralisées en RDC. Ces entités territoriales décentralisées, aujourd'hui, ils ont des plans locaux de développement. Et dans ces plans locaux de développement, ils n'ont pas tenu compte des besoins spécifiques des femmes. Et nous, pendant des ans, le travail que nous avons fait, c'était d'analyser ces plans locaux de développement et qu'on puisse tenir compte des besoins spécifiques des femmes. On a demandé 5 par entité. Sur 44 entités qui comptent la province du Nord Kivu, nous avons travaillé dans 33 entités. Et
I really apologize. We promised to give the other
oui,
Congolese.
là, je veux dire qu'avec cette analyse, on arrive à avoir des groupes de discussion où nous avons les autorités locales, nous avons les jeunes, nous avons les femmes, nous avons tout le monde. Et là, ils identifient leurs besoins et surtout les besoins des femmes. Et ils mènent des plaidoyers ensemble pour trouver des solutions. Et ce que nous avons fait dans le plan, les plans provinciaux, sur les 5, on a dû introduire au moins 2 comme priorité dans les plans de 2025. Et je crois que je devrais dire ça quand même. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, thank you. We thank you for your courage. And this is one of the main reasons. Yeah, I hope you get the interpretation.
No, it's okay.
Yeah. This is one of the main reasons why we organized this event. And we will produce a report from this and we will gather more information from you so that our colleagues here and, others who are not in the room will also have that, opportunity to learn more. Thank you so much. We appreciate it very much. We have 7 minutes left and I know all of us have other events to go to. I would now like to call on Marie Rose to share very, very briefly. And Marie Rose can speak in English for the benefit of those who don't access to Zoom.
Thank you, Mavic. Thank you to GNWP. My first thought comes to Maman Justine. I want to share my sadness. I personally have family who left Goma to Tanzania. So I wanted to bring out that young women and young men in the DRC make up 67% of the population. But young women have largely been excluded from political, social, and cultural arenas that could facilitate their engagement as active members of the society. We ask ourselves, where are the youth? Where are the young women in the current Luanda processes? Maman Justine just said there is no women. So if there is no women, how are we going to have even young women? So despite these cultural and societal norms, young women in the DRC have a challenge and they are greatly influencing the youth peace and security agenda. As you know, the women peace and security agenda have largely influenced the young women position in the youth peace and security agenda. Their leadership has positioned the DRC as the first Francophone country and the second African nation to develop a national action plan. And I would like to thank Mama Annie, who is sitting next to you, because she was the one leading the whole process. Conflict in the DRC disproportionately impacts women and girls. Recent reports indicate that 20% of incidents of rape and violence against women in conflict zones are largely targeted by affected touches on young women. So Goma, for example, in Goma, where the government combats the M23, we have images of young women carrying babies and mattresses and running. So as young activists, we are advocating for a feminist peace-building approach, an intersectional feminist peace-building approach that acknowledge that conflict affect women, men, girls, boys differently, while recognizing the essential role of women and other marginalized groups in conflict resolution. As young women engage in the Youth Peace and Security Mechanism, I work in the Youth Peace and Security Mechanism in the DRC. We embrace a peace-building approach that accounts for the various dimensions, including the socio-economic and the immigration status. Young women bear the brunt of conflict, and they, like I said, they are usually targeted by members of rebel group aligned with the idea of OTCR, who reflect on building peace building from a local perspective. It means looking at conflict at a local dimension, criticizing the issues of poverty, unemployment, corruption, criminality, and inadequate access to resources. In Kinshasa, I would like to end up there. In Kinshasa, at the national level, regarding the implementation of the YPS agenda, young women have been at the forefront of the effort mainstreaming gender issues in peace and security dimension. They have successfully led the organization information session since 2017, bringing both the YPS and the WPS agenda. And they've been actively advocating the government to take into account diverse people specificity, including people with disability. One other thing that we are doing, we are not only looking at age, we are also looking at gender. We are also looking at working with Ministry of Gender, the Ministry of Defense, the Ministry of Budget, the Ministry of Economy, because we know that where young women are positioned, they stand from a different perspective. The DRC is a big country with 440 languages, 26 provinces. How do you consolidate those aspects and respect the specificities of those people? So currently, as the YPS mechanism, we are paying attention to all those, especially in the way we elaborated the National Action Plan to highlight and make those people participate. We had albinism people, we had people with disability participating in all the sessions that has allowed the DRC to have its current national action plan. We are also sometimes facing sexist accusations.
Mary Rose, I apologize. Could you wrap up in 30 seconds?
Of course.
Thank you.
To wrap up, I will say that there is a large cultural impediment on the way young women can influence and act as peace builders. But one thing people should keep in mind is that those young women who are leading up both agendas are actually aware of that, and as much as possible are trying to embrace and take into account the unique specificities that characterize the society in the DRC. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mary Rose, for highlighting the role of young women and their collaboration with other women peace builders in advancing both agendas, youth peace and security and women peace and security, and centering women and girls in that work. Thank you so much. I just would like to take this opportunity to share what another woman activist, Merville Gosso from Kinshasa, shared about how the suspension of support for humanitarian aid has been a hard blow to their work in DRC. And especially at the time of high tension in Eastern DRC, before this, USAID allocated over $500 million in humanitarian aid to support the different communities, particularly in Eastern DRC, as they were promoting social cohesion and dialogue and conflict prevention in different local communities. And that work has been put to an abrupt stop. And you can imagine how much this is needed. And I hope there will be some consideration made by decision makers here in the United States to resume the support, and so you can continue the implementation. Thank you so much, Merville, for your kindness and understanding for the lack of time that
Mais
that is left in our discussion.
Marvick, j'ai un mot, j'ai un dernier mot. I have the conclusion, please. Un dernier mot. Je voudrais ici une recommandation à l'endroit de GNWP parce que dans le cadre de notre travail, nous avons aussi travaillé sur la prévention des conflits. Et là, je vois l'appel des médias parce que nous parlons de l'intersectionnalité. Il y a lieu de pouvoir outiller les femmes aux nouvelles technologies de l'information et de la communication. Aujourd'hui, à l'ère du numérique, les femmes sont plus exposées, les femmes et les jeunes sont plus exposés à toutes sortes de violences verbales. Et là, il y a lieu de pouvoir créer en la femme, faire de la femme un agent à part entière de consolidation de paix afin que la RDC puisse connaître son développement et que la paix puisse régner à jamais. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you so much, Merville. And I apologize for the technical glitches and which also impacted on our time allocation. But I hope you found the discussion interesting. And now I have the pleasure and honor to introduce Honorable Mary Lou McFedran, independent senator from Canada, who will deliver the closing remarks. And Mary Lou, along with Dr. Rima Sala, are both founding board members of the Global Network of Women Peace Builders.
Thank you.
Over to you, Mary Lou.
Thank you so much, Mavic. I'm very mindful of our time that technically this session is over. So I will try to be very brief. I'm going to take the liberty of just using first names. You've got all the information with the names of our brilliant speakers and the way in which this title around focusing on intersectionality and peace building has been developed, and really some very evolved explanations of what it is we are actively seeing by women's leadership using women's values, women's skills, and focusing on women and girls. I think that one of the key points that our Global Affairs Canada representative, Emmy, made was this, how significant it is when governments actually invest in intersectional peace building by women. Ambassador Ticker brought us to mind of the 25th anniversary of Security Council Resolution 1325, and how in many ways that is the platform on which much of this work has been developed. And I would just add, we need to keep in mind we have a whole suite of Security Council resolutions under the theme of women, peace, and security. And we now have a growing suite of Security Council resolutions on youth, peace, and security. And I think it's fair to say that GNWP was the first international NGO in the UN context to say these go together. There is actually intersectionality of the two suites of the resolutions, and we're seeing a lot more work that's being done in that area. For our colleagues from the DRC, we've had an emphasis from each one of the speakers about the importance of collaboration and also the importance to challenge tokenizing. And this was also a very key point that Brigitte made about Lebanon, that going beyond that and really holding governments and other agencies that are involved in peace building to be able to make the point. I mean, think of the fact that so-called peace negotiations are happening around Syria now, and they're not allowing any women at the table. What the UN has had to do is form a women's advisory committee off in another location. That should raise all kinds of flags for us about as a process. Jasmine really emphasized dialogue. I think that's a good build on the collaboration theme, and that trust lost has to be trust regained and rebuilt, and that intersectionality is not one size fits all. From Luisa, from Colombia, we really had this a good example of the usefulness of investing and using a national action plan, and that it is unrealistic, but nevertheless, I think we've heard this multiple times here at CSW, and Luisa was pointing out that that is also a theme, and that is somehow civil society, somehow women leaders in civil society are supposed to fix this mess with virtually no resources. I've just been so surprised by the number of speakers that have said, oh, now civil society has to step in and fix what we can't fix. And of course, that's unacceptable. Everybody has to step up, and that kind of collaboration that was emphasized has really got to increase. Justine, for your bravery, for the bravery of the women of the DRC, of Colombia, of Lebanon, this point about solidarity and how crucial it is, and in the words of Marie-Rose, feminist peace. Lastly, I'm going to close by reminding us, although it probably doesn't need to be a reminder, of what we're facing in response to the political declaration that was tabled at the beginning of this week. We had a response and explanation from the country that funds close to 50% of all development work in the world. And the 47th president, I prefer not to use the name, let me just summarize very quickly from that explanation as to why the United States of America will not support the political declaration that was accepted for the Commission on the Status of Women 69th session. Put simply, and I'm quoting word for word, globalist endeavors like the 2030 Agenda and the SDGs lost at the ballot box. Therefore, the United States rejects and denounces the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and the SDGs, and we will no longer reaffirm them as a matter of course. Now, I think if there's any single document that we could pick from many documents, many instruments in the UN system, it would probably be Agenda 2030 as a demonstration of the need for intersectionality. And so I say this with this reminder. For those of you who follow hockey, there was a very important series between the United States and Canada. And in the three games, in the second game, there was orchestrated, planned ahead bullying. There were 3 fights in the first 9 seconds of the second game. And the US won. The third game, the deciding game, none of that happened because Canada, the Canadian players were not prepared to behave in that way. And indeed, Canada won. And as a way of explaining part of what happened, it was reminding probably this country and others that what Canadians do when they are threatened is they play hockey or they play politics with elbows up. Elbows up. And my friends, let's adopt that similar approach. Let's hold our space. Let's keep our dialogue going. Let's not accept tokenization. And if you will join me, please, let's do this with elbows up. Elbows up. Thank you so much. Merci. Miigwech.
Thank you, everyone, for your participation. And this is one of those conversations that should not remain in the room. Spread the word. Thank you and have a good day.
Elbows up.
Estuviste en Colombia.